Hello.
Good morning, Ian. How are we?
Hanging in. Hanging
Yeah.
in. Busy. Busy.
Are you
Crazy
caught are
weekend.
you caught back up from the first week back at home?
Yeah, I'm mostly caught back up. It was first day of school for the kids, different
Yeah.
schools, but this week passed and then today for two of them, so a lot of running around and
So you have your
getting
whole house
organized.
back now, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty
That
awesome.
yeah. I actually work in an office, so I usually leave the house most of the time. But like this is an actual office outside the house here that I'm in.
Okay, so you're telling me this green office that you just spent all that time painting and making beautiful? I thought this was in your house. That's not in your house?
Not in my house.
Where
I
is
have an
it?
office in town, like 3 minutes from my house.
Okay.
But right in town, me actually and my brother and my cousin. My brother and my cousin have a consultancy, and we split an office. So I have my
Wait,
own
you have a
space here.
consultancy and the software products that you've been doing for
No. Let
19
me
years?
clarify. No.
Ah,
So my brother and my cousin have a consultancy, their own thing. I'm not involved in that.
okay.
Then
Okay.
I have Userscape. We share this office space. And yeah, so we get to hang out, which is cool. And I get to get out of the house, which is cool.
That's nice.
Yeah, so I mean, I've worked from home forever, so it's like probably worked from home about half the time that I've been doing Userscape. So about half of the 20 years I was just only home, and then half I've had an office. So
And which
it's
one's
good.
better?
I like the office.
Yeah.
I like the office, especially because my brother and my cousin are here. So it's also like creates like a little crew. Like we have like an
Yeah.
actual little office environment. I mean, home is great too, but you just get caught up in things with little kids. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Like there's always
Oh, I
something
know
going
how it
on.
is.
So
Yes.
when you want to
Yeah.
have like most of the time it's even fine, but it's just like sometimes when you're really trying to be in the zone on something and then you get interrupted or
Yeah.
whatever. It's just like it's just nice to be able to know
Yeah.
I can go on a video call or whatever.
If there were a place 3 minutes from my house that I could have a good setup and especially have friends there, oh, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and we got the
Yeah.
coffee shop. We got like, there's just like restaurants, so I can just walk places for lunch and whatnot.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of walking here in Texas, but
Right.
if I could find a spot like that, that would be amazing. I would love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. But you're in the new setup there is different than your what would you had a name for your
The
cave,
shed
right?
quarters.
Shed
Yeah.
quarters.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
branded and everything. Yeah.
I know. It's
The
a
shed
bummer
quarters
to have to leave
actually
it.
was maybe the best of both worlds, save for
Right.
no friends being there. But it was physically separate from the house. It was literally a shed that I had
Right.
delivered and then finished out into a quarters. And so it was physically separated from the house, but still I was home, so I could just walk out the back door across the deck, and then I'm at work.
Yep.
So that was ideal, I think. But in this rent house, they don't have a separate space, and I'm not gonna buy a new shed and put it in a rent house backyard. So
So why didn't you bring the shed with you?
yeah, I think it added too much value to the house
Oh, you
because it
sold
was
your other house. You weren't
yeah, we
renting
sold
before.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
Gotcha.
sold it, and I think it didn't like technically count in the square footage, but
Right.
it in people's minds it counted as an an accessory dwelling unit because it was heated
Yeah.
and cooled and insulated.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
so somebody could rip out the cabinets and turn it into like a mother-in-law suite without, I guess, without plumbing, which kind of sucks. But still,
Yeah, but just even more space for whatever,
even
a
more
hobby,
space. Yeah.
shop, a workshop, or whatever. It could be anything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it would have been a huge pain to load that thing back up on a trailer. I mean, it was
Right.
10 by 20.
Oh yeah. So that's a real
It's a
yeah,
house.
that's a
Yeah.
big size room. Yeah.
Yeah, and then once it was all finished out, I felt less confident about it being on a trailer on the road and
Right.
jostling
Yeah.
around and
Is it gonna be the same once it lands in a new
yeah.
spot? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, plus, you know how when you do a project, you finish and you're like, "Oh, that was good. I would do it 100% differently next time."
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel. It's like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun. I did a good job. I'm proud of myself." There are so many things I would do differently. So, I'll just
Yep.
do another one. I'll just
Yeah.
rebuild it
That's
whenever
the
we
way
get
to
a new
go.
house. Yeah.
We built our house, and that's how I feel about our whole house. It's like, oh, this is great. Like we got everything we wanted as we built it, and then it's like, oh, but we should have done all these things differently. And we only had one kid, like when we built it, but then now we have 3 kids, and all
That
those
seems
kind
like
of things.
such a brutal part about building a house. Like, it sounds really fun, and I would love to do it someday. But I want to build a second house because of that exact reason. I don't want to build a house and be like, I'm going to live here forever. Also, I know every single mistake we made because I built it. It's like, that kind of sucks.
Why'd we let that electrician get away with not putting outlets in these spots, and now we need outlets? Or like, we have a million of those things where like we just look around and like, oh, why'd we do that? Or why'd we let somebody get away with that? Or whatever. Like
we were just out of emotional fortitude at the end.
A lot of that at the end.
And now I'm so mad we don't have a plug there.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. All right, where do we want to go first?
I don't know. What do you think?
You know what I want to talk about, Ian?
Yeah. What do you got?
I want to talk about DHH.
Oh, baby, we haven't done DHH on here.
We haven't done DHH. So
DHH.
A lot of good things to talk about here.
Man of the hour.
Man of every hour for the past 20 years.
Right.
All right. So I do want to talk about Once, which is him and Jason's new manifesto about SaaS. I think that's I think that is actually interesting and discussion worthy. So we'll save that. We'll save that. We'll
see when we get to that.
Yeah, we'll save that for a second.
Sure.
I want to talk about this freaking TypeScript thing. How much of this did you follow?
I mean, I'd say like I was only like somewhat following it. I didn't realize it had blown up totally, I think, till a little bit after it started blowing up, because I'm not really actually super into the TypeScript circles, even though I did learn it, recently. So yeah, I wasn't totally following it, but then I started to catch on that like, oh, people are like totally freaking out on DHH. So
yes.
Okay,
so
he's getting rid of TypeScript.
Here's a little recap of what happened. They've got this turbo library, which from my understanding is very much like HTMX or I don't know how it's different from Hotwire actually, but I think it's like HTML over the wire, and then they swap out DOM nodes. So kind of similar to Livewire, but way less feature rich, right? So it's like it's like a JavaScript library for people who don't want to use JavaScript. First of all,
it's one of those. That's like that's the main point.
Yeah. And so he unilaterally decided, I don't want to use TypeScript in this library because I don't like TypeScript, and it's my library. Like, all right, whatever. Wrote this little manifesto, as he does.
He likes a manifesto.
He loves a manifesto. Loves a manifesto.
Yeah.
And, bid farewell to TypeScript in a very poetic fashion, and people lost their gosh dang minds. And I was like, so I'm of two minds about this. One is I don't really care. I don't really care for TypeScript. Like, it's just, I've never used it. Don't really care for the syntax very much, but also don't really care about it very much.
Yeah.
I'm like, do whatever you want. So that's my first thing. And then my second thing is like, why must everyone care about everything so much? That's what I couldn't understand, is like these people who have never heard of Turbo, who had never used it, who had never touched Rails, suddenly felt the need to opine on why this was such a foolish decision and so user hostile. Like, what's going on, man?
Well, I mean, that's second part. I mean, that's just, I think that's a kind of standard Twitter play, right? Like, that's like
the outrage bait.
The outrage, yeah. People love to get the outrage marketing, the outrage bait. I don't even know if he was intentionally marketing it. I wonder what he thought about the controversy level. I assumed he figured there would be obviously pushback because, it's sort of, he's making a stand or whatever, but it does seem like it went beyond kind of standard levels
reasonable.
Of you've changed it. But this is the JavaScript world, though. It's so like intense over there. Like that's
it's
where
so
all
intense.
the like big brains are, right? They're all in there and they're like making their new frameworks, and every day there's a new thing, right?
It's
and so I do
intense.
think that the TypeScript is somewhat foundational to a lot of that, or at least they think it is. And so I guess that ruffled some feathers, which is sort of interesting because I feel like all these same people to me, the interesting part is like I feel like none of them could give two hoots about Turbo.
Correct.
They don't care about people who want to not think about JavaScript, right? Like that is not their world.
Correct.
They don't care about that world, right? So like, kind of who cares? I mean, so this is where I've been.
Who cares?
This is
Who
where
cares?
I've been
Who
with
cares?
DHH for like almost 20 years. Is like, who cares? Like,
Who
and
cares?
everybody is so hot on DHH and what he's doing and what he's driving and
Yeah.
what Basecamp's doing. And I'm like, who cares?
Who cares?
Their advice has been bad for a long time. This is my hot take. Okay, this is the Landsman DHH hot take that you may not have heard as much as some other people
we're
have.
going
But
super way back.
yeah, I mean, their
whole
advice has been
time.
bad a long time, and like, so if you're on board with that, like, this is just more bad advice. If you love TypeScript, right? Then fine. What do you care? And like, yeah, he's building these things for people who aren't like most of the JavaScript people. So I don't know
Yes,
why they
correct.
care. Like, this wasn't for you to begin with. It's still not for you, and everybody should just move on with their lives. Like, it's fine. You can use TypeScript if you want. You can still use TypeScript. I believe this is possible that like in your parts of the code that
Yes,
you could use
you can.
TypeScript and you could use Turbo and it's not TypeScript and it all works out. So great. There you go.
God, man, I was worried. I was worried that we had lost you to the React world and you were going to become a JavaScript crackhead, but you still got a good head on your shoulders there.
Yeah. I'm not totally gone.
So the other thing is like DHH and Jason Fried wrote this book called Rework.
Right.
And in the book, which I read, and it's good. I liked it. In the book, one of the chapters is about how picking a fight can be good marketing. Right.
I mean,
And so, I think the example they used was like picking a fight with the App Store about hey.com or whatever it was. I don't remember. They're always picking fights. Who can say for sure? And so then I think he comes on here and he's like, I don't want to use TypeScript, which I genuinely believe is true in his heart. He doesn't want to use TypeScript.
Yeah, I agree.
But who can let a good fight go to waste? And so he picks a fight, and then his his Twitter impressions. I think he got like 4 million people to look at that one tweet, and if you look at the stars on Turbo, the repo, just like through the roof. And I don't know. I feel like the only sane person, or I feel like a mega brain, because I'm watching this happen and I'm like, y'all, he told you that part of his marketing strategy is to pick a fight, and he's picking a fight, and you're taking the bait and you're giving him exactly what he wants. Like, can't you see what's happening? And everybody's like, no, we must crusade for TypeScript.
Well, it's especially weird now because I feel like DHH, he doesn't, I don't know. It's sort of like, in the Godfather, right? Like there's a scene where like the guy's like, the Don doesn't have it anymore, and I kind of feel like that's it with DHH. Like he's not who he was in a sense of like, I don't feel like he dominates technical discussion the way they did there for a period of time, right? Where it was like
I don't
Rails,
think so.
Everything had to be Rails. Everybody was on board with Rails was the best thing out there, and DHH, whatever he said was just absolute, God speaking to you directly, right? And so it's like, I mean, really, who cares now? And also, if you just watch these guys, we've all watched them for however long you've been in this industry.
Yep.
You know that's their playbook, regardless of if they told you in their book, which they did. Like, it's very clear their game. And so, but people, you're cruising Twitter and you got nothing else to do for 5 minutes, so you throw down a little in the Twitter streets. Yeah.
Why not? Why not just get mad as a treat? Yeah.
Right.
Man, I muted so many people. Like I don't care. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care if you like TypeScript. I really don't.
Right.
But if you're gonna be a jerk
negative
about it, it's like, how did you end up in my Twitter feed, and how do I make that not happen again?
I don't use the blocking that much. I should block more, but I don't know.
I only block for like very egregious things or people that are like harassing. I mute for people that are like incessant shit posters that just want to stir up drama or rage or just tweet memes all day every day. I'm like, I just don't want to see that. So I just mute those people.
So what do you think about this with the outrage marketing though? So I think I definitely agree with the concept of whether it's outrage specifically or it's even just trying to do something against the grain as being good marketing. Like, I mean, that's pretty even like almost standard marketing. Like, Purple Cow 30 years ago, Seth Godin wrote this book kind of about standing out and all these things. And so that's one way to stand out. But like in their case, I don't think it really works that well for them anymore. Like, I think they had their moment in the sun and it worked great. And they built this huge audience. And listen, they can release anything and they'll make money. They could release a line of toasters, right? And they have a huge audience now and they could probably be profitable with a line of toasters. But are they going to reach the heights they did with Basecamp? Like, they've never gotten back to Basecamp, right? Like, they've literally never gotten back as high as Rails and Basecamp. Like, that was the peak. They try to do all these other things. The other things, I'm sure most of them are profitable, but they don't reach the heights of Basecamp.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It's fine. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of desperation in there nowadays of like, how do we get back? We got to try something new. Like, how do we get that juice we had of when we were on the kings of the world with Basecamp?
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard. That second product, it's very elusive for most founders to make the second product that outdoes the first. So
yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time judging accurately because of the way that they either do their manifestos or the way that they spin things, right? So when it was we're 37 signals and we're just gonna drop everything and go down to just being Basecamp because Basecamp rules. Right. It was like, oh, okay, are the other ones doing poorly? Because they would talk about, these other products are making millions of dollars a year. Right. And in my little pea brain, I'm like, that seems awesome. You should keep those. Right. But then they're like, well, we just want to have this certain lifestyle and we want to focus on these certain things and have this type of company that's not very big. And in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess like maybe that is right. I guess if you were to continue to grow these products, you'd have to grow your company and maybe you don't want to do that. And then they'll talk about, how many people signed up for hey.com and, you do the numbers and you think, holy crap, they're making a lot of money on that one too. So I don't know. I have a hard time judging accurately because they are so good at like telling their own story, which I think is,
it all seems like
that's
it's
the
top
lesson.
of the world.
Nobody knows because they're so good at telling their story.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear to me just generally that Basecamp dwarfs all the other ones. I would be very surprised if anything it was. I think people underestimate how huge Basecamp is.
I think they do.
I think Basecamp makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and so like, how do you make? I don't think Hey makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
No,
I definitely don't think any of the other stuff makes anything like that. So, and I also think none of this stuff is. When you have hundreds of millions of dollars a year, right? So you're making that year after year after year. They have all the money, right? So. Yeah. So what gets you up in the morning, right? Like more money, like to some money is
race cars for sure,
right? Right. Yeah. So that was it for a while, right? And then and the money is the scorecard, right? So there is an element to the money being the scorecard, and so having a bigger hit monetarily, maybe you don't need the money, but that's the like winning. That's not true of everybody, right? But in terms of if this is, I mean, my impression of them is they're a fairly big ego kind of group. And that there's an element to that they're trying to outdo, they want the next thing to be bigger than the last thing. And I don't think they've ever really accomplished that. And so I think that there is this kind of like, it's like, we're going to be Basecamp. No, we're going back to 37 signals because we got bored of Basecamp and now we want to do other stuff, and having a Basecamp do other stuff doesn't really make any sense. So now we're 37 signals again, right? And now we're going to do this email client. And that had its, 2 minutes where it was on CNBC for a day or whatever. And, whatever. There's people who use it and they like it, but I don't ever see Hey anywhere. I mean, honestly, I don't either. I don't see people using it.
I don't get a lot of emails from Hey.com.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple people I know who use it and they've used it since the beginning, and that's pretty much it. So it's not replacing Gmail anytime soon, right? So yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're on to the next thing of how do we outdo what we've done.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and maybe Once is their new way to try that. So before we move to Once, my last point, you asked about outrage marketing. Yeah. I think it does. Listen, I think it does work. I mean, we see if we take marketing and swap out social media growth, we see people on Twitter that grow their following just by being mad all the time. Like it absolutely works. But I have like a moral opposition to it. I just think it is fundamentally unhealthy and bad for whatever ecosystem you're in to be a rage a rage bait marketer.
Yeah.
I know that it works. Like, I'm not a rube. I know that it totally works, and I watch people do it all the time, but I have no respect for those people, and I don't think I'm alone. Like, I don't think I'm alone in
Right.
that, and so I never want to be that because I don't think it's worth it, but I also have, like, a moral opposition to doing that.
There's also like variations on it, which I think you do a great job with, which is like, if you think about there's a sort of, to go out there and actively rage market, right? Not where you're the kind of person who's just inherent to you, but like you are making a decision to do it, right? It's very similar to just that general decision of like, I'm going to put myself out there in a risky way, which obviously you've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to take risks with my ego, with my standing in my community, whatever community that is. So there is like a lot of similarity there. And then you can take that just in different ways. Like, you obviously just go like, well, here's a button I can push that gets everybody worked up. But usually there's other buttons you could push that are, maybe you wouldn't describe them as outrage, but it's like a different take, or it's a unique take on something or something like that, which is like, you're not necessarily like attempting to create outrage, but you are attempting to like make people think differently about something or get their interest in that kind of way, in that engagement. So these are actually very similar to me. Like, they're very like,
It's interesting.
two sides of the same coin,
Same coin,
of.
yeah.
But just like, yeah, you're going to go that route of like,
Light side or dark side.
right, it's a little bit light side or dark side.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I get that. Like, there's a way to be counter-cyclical or like against the current conversation, and I think there is a way to do that in a light way and in a dark way.
Right. Yeah.
And hopefully I've chosen the light way.
I think so far.
Okay, good. I'll try to stay on that path.
Maybe you'll just lose it one day, though. You'll just like wake up one morning.
Slipping.
You'll just choose violence one morning.
I'm gonna, yeah. You'll know when I need to get a quick hit of followers or something if I start rage baiting. No, at that point it's all over, and I just need to log off. All right, let's talk about this once thing. Do you know anything? Did you read this manifesto?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And as our resident on-prem expert,
that's me.
Okay, so Basecamp's once thing is like, hey, we invented SaaS. We invented SaaS software, and now we're gonna undo it. And you can buy a product and own it forever, but you gotta host it. So it's like, wait, what? So
I mean, I'm glad we did this order of the conversation, because I feel like this is the absolutely perfect. The conversation we just had maps this perfectly, which is like, we are gonna write something to try to be outrageous. Like, that's the whole point of this page, right? Is like to try to generate outrage and clicks and marketing.
Yep.
That's the only purpose of it. And I mean, whatever. I don't care what they're doing. I mean, fine, build on-premise software. It's great. But it's just sort of a little bit infuriating to me that much like everything that they're involved in, to me, like almost every single sentence in there is incorrect about how B2B software works. And if it wasn't about B2B software,
I gotta pull this up. Okay, I need the document
like,
in front of me.
Almost every sentence is wrong. The first of all, I will just say, because I usually talk not very nicely about DHH and 37 signals, but
this is the first I'm learning of this. This is great.
I just want to be
so
clear.
Glad we tapped into this.
Yeah, let's do these. We could do multiple podcasts, but their domain game is like, I'm in constant envy of the domain game. Domain game is unrivaled. I love that they spend the money. They spent millions of dollars on Hey, I'm sure. They spent millions of dollars on Once, I'm sure. They're out there. They're spending the money to get the amazing domains.
Yep.
I'm totally
There's
on
only so
board
many
with
race cars you can buy. At some point, you got to switch to domains. They're way more expensive.
So many developers out there, they're jealous of DHH. He's smarter. He's better looking. He's got race cars. He's got more money. I don't care about any of that. I've never been jealous of any of that with 37 Signals. The only thing I'm jealous about 37 Signals is how strong their domain game is. Their domain game is so strong. And I'm like, damn.
So they got a 3-letter with Hey and a 4-letter with Once, both .coms.
And both pretty good names. Like, pretty solid names for the service, or we don't know exactly what Once is yet, but like, good names. Basecamp's good name. They got the doc. I know they spent a lot of money for that because it wasn't on Basecamp.com for a long time.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, very jealous of their domain game. Big props to DHH and the crew for the domains, for sure.
All right, so now you
the
get
rest of this
credit for being
is wrong.
even-handed. You get credit for complimenting. So now let's run through the manifesto. All right, so this says you pay for it once, install once.com. You pay for it once, install it, run it. Server, your own computer server for everyone. It felt like you owned it, and you did. He's talking about the days of old, yada yada yada. Today, most software is
about
service.
Business software. That's the very first line. So they're talking about business software here.
Okay.
And I've sold business B2B software for 20 years, so I do know a little something about it. But
and it's talking directly to you, 20 years. For nearly 2 decades, that's you, Ian.
That's
the SaaS model benefited landlords, as a pejorative, I assume, landlords handsomely.
Like
with routine prayers and payers, clever, to the capital Church of Recurring Revenue. Valuations shot to the moon, and on the backs of businesses subscribed at luxury prices for commodity services they had little control over. So, a lot of adjectives, a lot of slander. How do we feel?
I mean, it's entirely incorrect. It's sort of unbelievable. It's like, it's really remarkably wrong. And I just can't express to you how wrong it is, everything they're saying there.
Oh, it's my favorite.
It's just totally incorrect. Because here's the thing. Let me explain for how B2B on-premise software works, okay? So first of all, let's just get out of the way the idea.
You don't even know where to start.
It's so wrong. So like, we're gonna just disregard, first of all, if they're making some product that's actually for developers and they're just couching it as B2B, that's a whole separate thing. We're not talking about. We're talking about
that's a good caveat.
You're going to a healthcare provider. You're going to a bank. You're going to a manufacturer, okay? Like somebody got a facility.
Super normie business.
Yes, okay? If we're talking about that kind of B2B, and even, internet B2B, but like real sizable companies, not just, one person business to business, which is a little bit different thing. You're talking about a big company, they got a CEO, they got whatever, all these different departments. So here's how it's worked forever. This is how it's worked. Okay, so yes, you used to have to download the software. Great. First of all, you paid a lot of money for the software. You pay a lot more than a lot of SaaS charge. Let's just start there. Just the software costs you a lot more money. It might be $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year, right?
Okay.
Fine. Or millions of dollars, right? You go, wait, there's no upper limit, like lots and lots of money for the software. And they're just totally wrong that there was no recurring revenue. They're just there's no other way to say it. I assume they're lying.
Church of Recurring Revenue.
I assume they're lying for the outrage aspect. And that they know better, but I guess it's possible they don't know better. But nobody ever sold on-premise software, B2B, that didn't have support as a yearly fee. And so right there, and usually that's somewhere between 25 to 35% of the licensing cost.
Oh, damn.
So
that's
you pay a big chunk up front, and then every year you're going to pay 25 to 35% in support. On a recurring basis. And the thing is, it was essentially a subscription because yes, the software didn't stop working if you didn't buy support, but literally nobody's going to run this. You're not running your bank on some software and then saying, you know what? Screw the support. Like, yeah, we got 100,000 people using this software, but if something goes wrong, we'll just see if we can figure it out. Like, no, nobody did that. They bought support every year. They budgeted for it. It was in the budget. If they stop paying that support, it's because they stopped using the product and they moved to a different product. And on that product, they paid support. So there was this whole inherent recurring model. In addition, you also had recurring revenue that would come from new seat licenses. They expand your usage, so you have all that stuff. So, and then on top of that,
you're calling foul on this whole.
It's just wrong. It's just straight wrong. And then also you had to have an IT department, which is not free. So now you have very expensive IT employees. And here's the thing. So I still am in this world. It's still about 25% of our new customer sales are on premise.
Really?
Yeah. So it's still pretty high for HelpSpot. And partially because now there are not that many, kind of actively developed, supported on-premise help desk applications out there. So if you have a need for that, like we're one of us shrinking market of that. So, but 75% are cloud, and the people who go cloud, like they don't even have IT departments. So there's this whole idea of like, well, the IT department's just waiting there. They're not waiting there. Like they either don't have IT anymore at all, or it's the IT department who wants to outsource it. They're like, yes, we want to run like the big chunky things that we have to run. And then
Right.
we don't want to run this random, reporting app or this help desk app or the stuff that is once a year we have to get around to updating it. And it's a big pain in the ass and nobody remembers how the server is set up. And nowadays, with all the security concerns, nobody wants a server just sitting there that nobody is really on top of. So the whole thing is just wrong. It's just straight wrong. Like, that's all there is to it. Definitely there's that. It made different people rich SaaS and things like that. And so there is those elements, but yeah, I don't know. But that's where they get down into like the second part, which is like, self-hosting is simpler and improved and all this stuff.
Yeah. So let's keep going. We haven't made it very far.
Yeah, let's keep going. We did the first half. The second half is wrong.
Let's read this one sentence. Add up your SaaS subscriptions last year, and then here's the punch. You should own that shit by now. It's like, oh wow, that's so edgy.
It's outrage, baby.
So edgy to say a curse word like that. Okay,
exactly.
Let's see. Yada yada yada. IT departments are hungry to run their own IT again, which, according to whom? Tired of being subservient to big tech's rain clouds. Oh, rain, R-E.
Oh, I didn't notice that the first time.
Man, rain clouds. That's okay. All right, introducing Once, a new line of software products from 37 Signals, formerly Basecamp, formerly 37 Signals. Pay one time, own forever. Okay. We write the code, you get to see it. I thought that was interesting. We give you the software, you get to host it as a kindness. You get to. You don't have to. You get to. Simple and straightforward, not enterprisey and bloated. For one fixed price, period, once, period.
Okay. So
I love when you get in a mood about something.
Man,
it's my favorite thing in the world. Your voice goes to this different like Seinfeld register.
Gets up there. Yeah. A little Kramer maybe. Seinfeld when he gets that like, angry.
Yep.
I mean, there's just the whole premise of this again. It's just wrong. The biggest driver of IT services to the cloud is IT departments. They don't want to be managing all these servers. There's definitely cost pressure on them. Like, people want to cut their budgets and stuff. So some of it is about like outsourcing, but also it's about they have this line here, which I think you just summarized, but I think it's kind of important. Like, you controlled what you depend on, and your privacy and security were your own business. And we think it's that time again. I mean, privacy and security is literally the reason why they want to not manage themselves. Like, because the security threat is so complex right now that the only kind of industries that want to take this on are ones where they're extremely privacy focused and have the money to do it. So like your finance industry, for example, are like, okay, we're running these banks. This data is just super critical. They still do a lot of cloud stuff too, but they are then willing to say, listen, we're going to run our own data centers. We're going to have top people run these data centers. We're going to spend the money to have security teams, right? We're doing all that stuff. They're not just like, yeah, let's spin up a server and throw something on there, right? Like, it's a huge undertaking to secure these things, especially with like ransomware and all these things that are going on in security, especially at big companies. They're not dying to like have some random piece of software to run, and your average IT department is definitely not. They're
IT
like, we don't have security experts.
Hungry to run their own IT. You don't think so, huh?
No, if you're like at some K-12 school, right? Are you hungry to like be the front line of security on every single app? Like, maybe there's a few that you have to be responsible for, and that's your job. But you want to lower that surface area. You don't want to have hundreds of random apps that like you have to have all these servers spun up. You have to make sure they're secure. There's all these security incidents now. There's automated attacks. Like, there's all this stuff.
And you've never heard of Ruby on Rails in your life. And now you're hosting a Rails app. You don't know what that is.
Exactly. And there's all kinds of other problems with it. Like, for the customers we do have on-premise, right? So there is all these more advanced security protocols now. So you have a lot of like active scanning of the code bases and things running on the server. And these things are very finicky, and they will often just keep apps from working because they're like, oh, we think this might be, something's wrong with the permissions on this file. We just take that file and we move it and we isolate it. So now HelpSpot stops running because some security scanning
just quarantined one of the files we needed.
Right, exactly. And it's not hacked or anything. Like, it actually was fine.
Yeah.
But, like, it doesn't like something about it. Okay, so fine. So, there's just a lot of headaches like that people are trying to get rid of for most of the types of software that I can imagine 37 Signals is going to build. People don't want to deal with it on premise. So, like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'll be very curious to see what they actually ship.
So let's imagine what they could ship. So I think before we do that, one thing that I can see being true about this is not the IT departments are hungry. That seems crazy to me. Writing the code and getting to see it seems like a novelty that no real business would super care about.
No, nobody cares.
You get to host it. I'm not interested in.
Nope.
Simple, straightforward, not enterprisey and bloated. That's nothing.
That's the UI. Like, that could be a SaaS app too, right? Like, that's not on premise.
You could say that about anything. Oh, mine's simple. Yours is bloated. Who cares?
Right.
I think one thing that is interesting is like the data governance, provenance, isolation thing. And at Planet Scale, we by the way, I saw you started using single source. We got to talk about that. At Planet Scale, we have a thing where we can host Planet Scale inside of your AWS account, and so you still have control over all of the data and, in fact, all of the resources as well. And I think that's an interesting model. But importantly, we're not handing over operational complexity to their IT department. It is purely like, yeah, we're going to run this inside of resources and networks that you own because your data, you want it there or whatever. So I think that is interesting, but that is completely different than this model that they're talking about.
And that is a lot of who we sell to, even with HelpSpot, is like, if you're in the EU and just like obviously kind of tricky to host stuff in America still to some degree and things like that. It's like, well, we want to just run it in Europe. Fine. We actually have a EU data center now for HelpSpot for cloud customers, which people use. So that's what the other thing is, like, most of these big SaaS apps now that deal with enterprise B2B, they have that built in on some level where you can choose, for your data to be hosted in certain regions and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, that is absolutely a valid thing. And there are certain industries where that's important, and those industries still have big IT departments and security teams, and they're spending the money to do those things for things that they don't want under any circumstances to be in another company's hands or to have to go through another company. But, it's a very small part of the industry. And then on top of that, it's not the kind of software I could ever see them building for the most part. So
yeah, let's talk about that. Do you want to postulate what they're actually going to build here?
I don't really know. I don't see.
Can't get there.
I mean, to me, I would say maybe a help desk app would be something I could see them wanting to build, because they're probably not happy with the other help desk apps out there, and they're like, well, we'll build it ourselves. We'll make it this. I can see that. I could see they've been super into like getting off the cloud for their actual physical servers. So they're going to do some kind of new age server management
IT enablement kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. That would make sense, and that would probably do all right, because like that kind of makes sense. Like, you need to run that yourself on your servers to some degree, potentially. Usually there's at least like clients involved, so yeah, maybe just run the whole thing. I don't know. Besides that, like email newsletter software type thing, that seems a little low.
Seems a little low, yeah.
For them,
seems a
right?
little,
like,
yeah, prosumer for them.
Yeah, something. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I'm thinking help desk. I feel like help desk is in the middle of Basecamp and email.
Right.
Like, if you were to do a Venn diagram and cross those two over, I feel like the answer is help desk. And I could see them thinking help desks should be self-hosted internally.
Yeah.
But I can't get to anything else besides help desk.
They do also make it sound like it's going to be a series of products.
They do. That's
their
right.
intention, it seems
the
like,
first
is that.
product late 2023, more in 2024.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I can't really come up with too much that I think it would make sense for, that people would actually want, or some kind of dev tooling thing. But that's not the vibe of this page,
No.
right, is not dev tooling focused. So
Yeah.
and they say
And they're
explicitly
also
business, so.
pretty anti dev tooling, to be fair. They maybe
Right.
built Rails, but then in everything else they're like no bundler, no build. We're gonna do no
Yeah.
cloud, no. They're just like we're gonna do everything our own way. So
Right.
I don't know. Good topic though. Glad I
Yeah,
brought
there we
that
go.
one up.
Jeez,
I got you
yeah,
amped on that
got
one.
me going there.
All right.
All
Whew.
right, what else we got? We should transition. Let's
Take
take a breath.
Where do you want to go next? I want to talk about either single store or this factory recycle thing, which I've never heard of in my life.
Yeah, I know.
And then I also decided I think I want to try to get 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So we can talk about any of those things.
Okay, well, let's you give us your take on this recycle thing, because
I don't know what it is.
Okay,
Yeah. So if you want to stop talking, this is no good.
Oh man,
I literally that's why I have it in the outline as factory recycle ? Because I saw you tweet about it, and then I saw Taylor quote tweet it that it was a Jess Archer thing, and then I saw I think Chris somebody tweet about it. And I was like, "What are you guys talking about?"
All right, let's just do 2 or 3 minutes on recycle.
Okay,
Everybody has to
2 or
know
3
about
minutes.
this. Very important, and then we'll move on to YouTube here, which I think I'd like to hear about. So, recycle is basically on Laravel factories, right? That let you automatically build out, models and whatnot. If so, in any real-ish application I've ever built, like, those are good, and they're obviously good for testing, right? It's like whatever,
Sure.
spin up an instance of a model and do some tests against it, great. But then I like to work with a lot of seeded data in my apps, and any real type app, it just needs more than usually that the factory can give it, because you just have all these interrelations. You have things that maybe have to happen before another thing happens.
The data model has gotten messy over the past 20 years. Yes.
Yeah, and even for a new app, I find I'm just building real apps, and real apps have complicated structures, right? They're not usually like the hello world. Look at it, it's a post with comments, and these are just the 2 relations, and it's super easy. Like, that's messy, and so you end up with a seeder that's got like all these loops, and it's calling out to like application code to create something, and it's doing all this stuff so that we can actually get data in the app in the real state, or at least real-ish, in the ballpark of real. Not where like, oh, I have 100,000 posts and there's 100,000 authors to go with it, which makes no sense, right? Because I'm not going to ever have one author per post. Like, it would just happen if I just kind of did it the standard way. So I have to like do all this menagerie. Maybe there's always been a better way to do it. I don't know, but I always did all the menagerie. But apparently in Laravel 9, Jess Archer added to the framework this recycle method on the factories, and so it's very simple. You pass it in, a factory of, like, let's say like an organization factory or author, and it'll just remember that. And then anytime it calls for an author to be created anywhere else farther deeper into the tree that you're kicking off of the factory creation, it'll just use that one you passed in. So now you can say, give me 500 posts, but use this author for all of them. And now I have one author and 500 posts. And now my data is just as it would be in real life. And I'm very happy. I don't have to write any loops or call out to any application code to set anything up. And it's all magical and wonderful. And even for tests, I think it's going to be useful, because a lot of times in tests, there's spots where I wouldn't mind having things be more real in certain ways. And it's like, well, then I got to set it up and blah, blah, blah. But this way I don't have to set it up. So it just makes it easy to pass that through, and you can pass through multiple, I think. So you can have, 10 authors and 10,000 posts, and it'll distribute them across and things like that.
Okay.
So a lot of people seem to not know about this.
Yeah, me included. That's of course very well named, as everything is in the framework.
The naming,
love it.
Naming is so good,
Great
Laravel.
And very, very helpful. Good job, Jess Archer.
Yeah, so good. So definitely check out that if you haven't seen that. I think a lot of people don't know about it, is my impression. I just discovered it, and I was like brought to tears essentially by it. So it's just going to simplify my seeders so much in the future. I'm very excited.
I love it.
Yeah. So, all right. So personal goals here you got.
Yeah.
All right,
so,
let's hear it.
I want to get one of those plaques. You know those silver
the
YouTube
plaque,
play buttons?
Yes.
I want one. In fact, I'll be frank, since it's just you and I want two.
Two.
I want two.
I think we gotta have one for our podcast here.
Okay, let's do three.
Three.
I want one for Planet Scale, and I want one for personal.
And where are you at on those?
Planet Scale is up to 12,000.
Okay.
And personal's up to like 10.8, I think. So I'm a tenth of the way there, which is,
I mean, I feel like it's inevitable if you are able to keep it up that, like, 10,000 people liked it. I feel like you can get to 100,000. It's just
that's kind of how I feel.
It's gonna be the work. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I started this YouTube thing a few months ago, and it's like, people are talking about Laravel finally. People are talking about Laravel on Twitter, not us. And maybe I'll make a video about how Laravel is awesome. And I did, and it did great. And I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. Maybe I should do more videos. And I started making videos for Planet Scale's YouTube because, I had done the whole course for them. Right. And I thought the course was really high quality and it got very good reception. But YouTube's like a totally different game. It's a beast unto itself.
Yeah.
And so I started making YouTube videos for Planet Scale, and they started doing well. And I was like, this freaking rules. I could do this forever. And so I think I want to go for it. Like, I think I want to increase, production output and try to hit 100,000 on 2 channels, which
that would be crazy.
Would be crazy, right?
That would be crazy. And you're not. I don't think you necessarily are cross-populating them too much on YouTube itself. Anyway, I know on Twitter you probably are, but not in YouTube itself. Yeah. So
where did they YouTube, start? They're not linked at all.
Where did you start at here?
My personal started at 30 or 60 or whatever, because I had some from.
That's it. Like really,
3-0.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh wow. Okay. So you really have grown it fast. Yeah. That's great.
And then I think Planet Scale, when I started posting, they had I want to say 1,000 or 2,000, something like that. So negligible as well. And
the Planet Scale one's not reposting your course. This sounds like these are new videos.
This is all new material. That again is more tailored to what YouTube desires, which is, punchier, funnier, faster. The course is very much hey, you're going to sit here and you're going to listen to me because you need to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have thought that a good vein of content for the Planet Scale one would be basically take the course and redo it, but for YouTube.
Right.
Because I've already done all the research and all the hard work. Now I just got to go back and redo it and make it more fun and, punchy. And I think that's I don't know, it's 65 videos or something.
That's a lot to work from.
That's a lot to work from. And the hard part is the research.
I mean, and that's probably 200 YouTube videos or something, right?
Yeah,
in terms of
they got to be a lot shorter and
Yeah, and you're going to be probably maybe a little more focused. You might be able to tear one course video into a few different chunks or whatever and different angles on it and whatnot. So wow, so that's amazing. What's the kind of key that you found so far to it? So is it just because your videos aren't short, they're not 2 minutes.
No, they're between I think 8 and 15.
Yeah. And so just that's the other thing. Is it your kind of people who know you think a lot of it, or you think is the algo, do you see it continually kind of go and the algo's pushing it?
It is shocking how much it is not me and how much it is the algorithm.
That's awesome. That's great.
Because I will look, they give you good breakdowns, and I'll look and see where does the traffic for this video come from? And I sent this to the Planet Scale CEO recently because we were both just amazed by it. It's 1 or 2% from outside traffic.
Wow. I would have never thought that little.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's
so
amazing.
All of this make a scene on Twitter about a new video barely matters at all. Now, does it matter?
Might kick it off, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
does it matter to alert the algorithm that there's something to look at here? Potentially. So I'm not going to stop.
Sure.
But yeah, it's 80% YouTube browse, 19% YouTube up next, and then 1%. And honestly, I think the direct is maybe, or the outside of YouTube is, 2% or something. And 50% or more of that is Google search.
I was just going to say a lot of that won't even be you.
it's
It'll
not
just
it's
be
not even driving
Google
it off Twitter.
search or
It's Google
other
search.
links from other places
sure.
or somebody else's tweet or whatever. So yeah,
Yep.
like wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy,
unbelievable.
and that's why, yeah, and it's so durable because like you'll have a video sit out there for a while, and then it finally starts to like get picked up. Whereas any other platform, you post something and it's gone, lost
Right.
to the winds of time, and so it's awesome for that reason.
Especially the stuff you're posting is a lot of like, fairly evergreen stuff. Eventually it might be outdated, but it's not going to be outdated, next
Right.
week or anything like that. It's going to be useful
Yeah.
for quite some time, which is great. Like,
And I'm still
should, yeah,
trying to
keep building
develop
up.
like my personal rules for being on YouTube. Like I have, I have a vibe and a set of rules I follow on Twitter. I think for YouTube, one of them is like, don't try not to do super of the moment stuff. Like, I don't necessarily want to do, here's what dropped in Laravel 10.2.3. And I'm like,
Right.
that's a very narrow audience. And two, that's going to be outdated next Tuesday, when they drop the next one.
And more competitive to some degree too. There
Totally.
are a lot of sites and people doing that kind of like thing because that's a somewhat obvious thing. It's like, okay, what's new? We can talk about what's new.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to talk about. But yeah, for the longevity of it in terms of what YouTube wants, it may not be the best angle there. I'm very interested in this whole personal rules thing. I don't know. Can we take a side detour on the personal rules?
Yeah,
Because
let's pull up the rules.
yeah. Oh, you have like written down rules.
Oh,
This
it's
is
public. Are you
Oh, is
kidding
it
me?
public? Okay.
Yeah, it's public and pinned. All right, let's go to
Oh, is it
twitter.com/Aaron D. Francis. My personal Twitter guidelines, September 4th, 2021. Here we go. So these have morphed a little bit over time, and maybe there are more or slightly different takes on them, but these are fundamentally the exact same as I operate today. So rule number 1 is encourage other people, which is like, if you think something is cool, tell them that you think it's cool. Because so my whole thing is like, I want to be a positive force for good on Twitter and not someone who's being cynical, mean, and obnoxious. So first one, encourage other people. Second one, be positive. A feed full of negativity is zero fun to follow. This is core to my being and also strategically optimal. Like if you complain about everything all the time, nobody's gonna want to follow you.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that they got your coffee wrong. I do not care.
Especially
I'm sorry
those
that they
things
lost
are
your
kind of
bags.
rough. Yeah.
I don't care. Like, not every offense is directed at you personally. Like, sometimes things just happen.
Do you think there's a balance there? There is a sort of interesting aspect of the Twitter providing an insight into somebody's actual life. So to me, there is a difference between like the person who's continuously negative about everything and the person who's like normally fine, but then, hey, this like weird thing happened and I'm just like ranting about it.
I don't normally do this, but those tweets. Yeah.
Like a little insight into like who they are, where they are. Like sometimes I'm okay with some of that potentially.
Yeah, I'm okay.
But I
I'm
agree
okay
with you.
with
The
some
like
of that.
ongoing is not.
There are people who it seems like Twitter is their source, their way to vent their frustrations with the universe.
I mean, there's lots of people.
That's a hard no for me.
I've been that person. I feel like I've been that person. I've been trying not to be that person in this newer age.
That's good.
But
I've
been
good.
that person.
I'll let you know.
Points.
I'll keep you on the straight.
There you go. Yes. Good.
Yeah, I feel like it's totally fine to do that from time to time. And if the question is insight into, the person, the life, whatever, I think you can get that other ways without complaining. I feel like I provide a pretty transparent look into my life without, hopefully, being negative. But there are definitely times that I think, yeah, that's totally appropriate to, express frustration or whatever. It's just the pattern of, man, this person just moans about everything.
Right.
I'm like, nah, next. And then the last one is share what you're working on. People are drawn to other people in motion. And this is what I feel like a lot of people miss. This is they think, okay, I got to grow my Twitter or I got to grow my following. So I'm just going to comment on everything that happens. So I'm going to comment on TypeScript. I'm going to comment on can't even think of anything besides TypeScript. Anything of the moment, I'm going to have an opinion on it, and I'm going to put myself at the center of the conversation because that's what you have to do. And I'm like, no, just tell people like you're doing things. Like, I made this, I made that, I read this, I watched that. Like, just comment on what you're actually like working on and what you're building. And that will be the thing that people coalesce around instead of coalescing around the fact that you have hot takes on everything that happens every day.
Right.
So those are the rules.
I like them. Now, how do the rules change for YouTube?
So they do change because YouTube is inherently a different medium, right? So Twitter's text, and it's hard to interpret tone or nuance on Twitter. Yep. And so then when you go to video, you have a lot more freedom because you can explain a thought more fully. Now, will people listen to it? I have no idea. But that part's not my responsibility. Like, my responsibility is if I'm going to have, let's say, a hot take, I need to explain my reasoning behind it. And so I feel a little bit more freedom. I feel a little bit more freedom on YouTube to have more nuanced opinions, which can sometimes veer into hot takes. But I always try to like keep it nuanced and advocate for the things I like instead of bashing the things that I don't like. Yeah. And then the other ones don't super change, honestly. Like, I'm not going to do rage bait YouTube videos. And so I think the only thing that does change is the ability to more fully explain and have nuance. So that gives you a little bit more freedom to talk about some more edgier things. Also, I don't share anything really personal on YouTube. People there don't know me.
Yeah, so that's a little different.
Yeah, like Twitter is friends, YouTube is media, and I just put out a piece of content and expect this is the only thing anyone here is ever going to consume. I don't imagine them getting to like know me personally.
Kind of interesting though. It's like, because obviously on YouTube you see kind of both sides, right? Of people like, this is informational, I'm sharing information, and you have people who build huge audiences and they're just basically sharing information. Obviously you're getting some of their personality just inherently in that, but then they're not necessarily going above and beyond. And then you have the other end where you have like a Casey Neistat or whoever.
Right,
and like,
totally.
It's all personality, and it is what they're working on, but it's like all kinds of other stuff too, and it's a day in the life and all these things. Yeah. So, I don't know. Is there even a middle ground, or or you think just keep it kind of focused on the informational content?
I think for me, the middle ground is do the informational content without being afraid to be yourself. And so for me, like, everything that you see on Twitter or in real life, you'll see on YouTube. Like, same humor, same jokes, same rules, same ethics, morals, all of that. You'll see it on YouTube. You just don't, like, I just don't really go into the reasoning behind it or explain, like, here's how I operate. But if I were to do a vlog, like, if I were to do, like, a different channel or, do a series of vlog videos, I could totally see myself doing that. I just don't think my personal connections are going to be on YouTube. I think they're going to continue to be on Twitter. And so I don't feel like it. I don't want to do a vlog, basically. I don't want to do a day in the life. I don't want to be Casey Neistat.
Right. I could see you doing a vlog of like a Laracon. Like, you're hosting Laracon and
that would
be
like, fun.
It's 3 days of what happened to you in and around Laracon or something like that. That could be
fun. I could do that. Yeah, I could.
It's like a one-time,
like
one-off stuff
like that.
Drop, something like that. Oh geez, now I interrupted my train of thought with that, and I forgot I had another question here. Oh, have you done any? Are you kind of big on the researching of YouTube and how to, like, have you researched the business of YouTube, I guess is my question, or has it been more organic than that?
I don't know how this will make me sound, probably like a rube. I have done zero research into
interesting.
Into like the business of YouTube. So the question, I guess my answer stands, but I still don't know what the question is, but the answer is the same for both. The business, like the back end, how do I make money long term, or the business, how do I grow? How do I,
how do you
what does
grow?
the algorithm
Like,
want?
what are the algorithm? Yeah, what's the algorithm
Yeah.
want? What are the tricks? What are the like? What should your profile? What should your image be on the
Yeah.
thumbnail image? Like, whatever, all that kind of stuff of like building up the channel and things like that. And also like, do you have ads on your personal channel?
I have
and things
ads
like that?
on,
Like,
on the personal channel, and I make literally tens of dollars, so it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm just rolling in it. So the answer to both is no. I haven't done any research into the back end. From what I understand from just like being online, on the business back end, like making money, the money comes from sponsorships, sponsored content.
That's what I figure, yeah.
Because I think I've literally made like $200 this past month off of YouTube.
Right.
And then from what I understand just from being online about how to grow is like, you got to hook them in the beginning, because if they click away, it's game over.
Right.
You got to get them to click. And that's where all the like stupid faces and the thumbnails come in. And that's another rule that I have, is I'm not going to I know that people fall into that because that's what the algorithm wants. I don't feel comfortable doing like the pretend to be shocked about something and then click through and it's just a video about JavaScript. I'm like,
a title that's totally unrelated really to the content.
Like, come on, man. At what cost,
Right.
So you got to get them to click, you got to get them to stay, you got to get them to watch. And that's like, I'm learning as I go that you got to tighten everything up. Everything you're going to say, you got to tighten it up, shorten it up, add an animation or whatever. And so, but yeah, beyond that, it's just like, all right, what if I feel like the midwit meme where you've got the simpleton on the left and the Jedi on the right, and both of them are saying make good videos, and I'm like, I don't know which one I am.
That's perfect.
Hopefully I'm the Jedi, but I'm probably the simpleton. I'm just like, I'm just gonna make a good video. So
I like that. I mean, definitely getting into the idea of videos and things. It's just the editing time just seems brutal. Luckily you're getting paid as part of your job for one of the channels at least to do it, which is awesome, and to get better at it, which is also benefiting your personal channel. But to really make a good video, I feel like obviously there are people who have just straight talking head and there's no edits and whatever, and they have 1 million followers. But I think for most videos would be greatly enhanced by having good editing and all that. So that's a lot of work there. I know you said on your recent video there we had a bunch of transitions. I mean, that timeline flow looked insane. Thousands of cuts to do the animations and things.
I also don't super like I'm just gonna turn on the camera and talk and then chop out the words and since I don't like that style of video. I don't watch those videos where it's like you can tell like every other word is chopped out and the camera's jumping around and I'm like, just rehearse it a couple times and give me some better takes. So I feel like I'm developing a style that I am comfortable with, and I'm hoping that the algorithm continues to prefer it.
And all right, so do you have a date for the 100,000?
Yeah, I think
a goal.
I think I want to do it in less than 1 year.
That's what I was thinking. I feel like 1 year is like, if you're trying to be ambitious, that's like a solid goal. 1 year.
So we'll say September, because today's Monday, September 11th, 2023. We'll say by September 10th of 2024. I'm shooting for 2. If I get 1, I'm going to be thrilled beyond belief.
Those plaques are awesome. And what's the next plaque? Cool. Is it 500,000 or a million?
I don't know. I think there's a gold one at $1 million, but I don't know if there's any in between.
The plaque that's a whole nother fascinating thing, is just the motivational factor of awards and things like that make, there's no economic incentive. There's no rational reason to want this award. But, I know, like, for me, like, I want it. Like, there's this, there's a couple poker tournaments that I would like to win someday, not because of the money, not because they have, like, in a couple places in Vegas, they have these really elaborate trophies. And I'm like, I would just love this really elaborate trophy that's just, like, on my,
you take it everywhere.
Mantle.
You take it to the next tournament and be like, this whole thing?
This whole giant glass thing, don't worry about this. And it's just like so cool and motivating, more more than the money for me. It would be like,
Yep.
oh, this like cool. It's like a real solid thing. Or like the WSOP. We haven't talked much about poker on here, but it's like the big poker tournaments. It's like you get a bracelet if you win one. And it's like, oh, and the bracelet's hideous and ugly and terrible.
Of course.
It's nothing near as nice as like the YouTube award. But it's like, oh, if you had a bracelet, that is like just signifying that you have reached
green jacket,
this certain
right?
level.
Same
Or
thing.
a green jacket, all those things. So the power of those type of awards and
So
things are
here's
very
what I
interesting.
think. Justin Jackson, if you're listening, which we'll know if you are or not, so I hope you are.
We should start testing community members.
We should,
yes.
yeah. So Justin, if you're listening, you should be sending out patches or stickers or emblems or something when podcasts reach certain listener marks.
Ooh,
Like I know that in the Transistor FM dashboard you get like
this is a great
a
idea.
badge or whatever. Those should be physical patches that like you get a patch
Blown
for
away.
100,000 listeners, and then you get little kernel toppers that go on top of it.
Yes.
It's like 200, 500, a million. Like, come on, what does that cost?
my
$4?
gosh. I so love this idea.
You know how thrilled I would be to like have a patch that's like you got 250,000 downloads. Like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, I did.
You don't even have, I mean, you could literally charge for it. It could cost you nothing. It's
Yes,
like when
I
you
would buy
earn
it.
it. When you earn it, you can click it in
Yep.
Transistor, and then you can buy
Add it to our bill because you're paying the bill.
Add it to our bill, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Like, but you can't buy it until you've earned it.
Yes.
And there's a very we have this Slopes app that does something similar, and it's like, when you have it a certain amount of time, you can buy the sweatshirt or whatever. And like, they should totally do that. People would totally line them up.
Yes.
We'd have them lined up. We'd have them either behind us or on something or whatever.
I have it instead of this little tree on my hat.
Yes.
I'd have
A hat with
250,000
100,000
badge
listeners.
or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All right,
That's
Justin,
a
that
great
one's free.
idea.
That one's free.
Just doling out the amazing
If I
advice on
don't
here.
hear from you, Justin, you're lost.
No.
First of all. So,
You made it to into the second hour with us here. Come on,
yeah,
Justin.
you endured the DHH stuff, and now we give you this treat at the end.
Oh, jeez.
And let that be a lesson, dear listener. You may get called out at some point. So you gotta listen. You gotta listen all the way to the end. So we may
like-
give you a tip for your business.
Is this breaking your rules? I feel like I might be corrupting you a little bit here. This feels like it might be a little breaking the rules, calling out the people.
No, this is long
and sharing
form.
them. Okay,
We
so
can be a
this
little
is
more
good.
folksy in the long form. It's audio. It's not text. I think we're okay.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
Well, that sounds good.
Shall we wrap it
Great
there?
advice. Yeah, let's wrap it. All right. If you're looking for us, mostlytechnical.com, mostlytechpod on the very happy Twitters, and mostlytechnicalpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to email us anything, follow up with us. I want some more follow-up, people. This
Yeah,
is
we
the
need
end
more
of the show thing,
mailbag.
too.
Yeah.
Give us some mailbag. I know people contact us on Twitter, which is kind of the same, but give us some mailbag. We want something to chat from the community with. So send us your ideas. All right.
All right.
Great one.
See ya.
Have a good one.